What's going on, y'all? Peter Griffin here. So now that we can actually view Iuno's kit in Wuthering ways right now, what I'm going to be doing today is that I'm going to be going over all of her abilities. I'm going to be discussing her entire kit, talking about her sequence nodes, her abilities, her weapon, and be talking about her potential teammates as well. And before I do get into the whole kit breakdown, I just want to say that Iuno is very hot, like straight up. She might be top 5, top 3 hottest characters in Wuthering Waves. And one thing that kind of questions me a little bit is that how they cooked with so hard with Iuno's design, but fumbled the bag with Augusta's. Because let's be real, in my opinion, I think Augusta's design is mid, but Iuno's design is absolutely top tier. But that's a topic for another day. So without a doubt, let's get into it. So for her normal attack, she'll be doing 3 consecutive attacks with the moon ring dealing arrow damage. For her mid attack, she'll just do a regular plunging attack that'll also be dealing arrow damage. And for her dodge counter, she'll do a successful dodge, counter attack with the moon ring, deal arrow damage, and if you press the basic attack button after that, she'll be able to cast basic attack stage 3 with the moon ring. So overall, her basic attacks looking pretty solid so far, nothing too crazy. And for when she's in the lunar cycle, which I will get into a little bit, and what the lunar cycle does, it's what Iuno's entire kit revolves around, so we'll get into that a little bit. So when she's in the lunar cycle new moon state, when she casts heavy attack flux, she will attack with the moon bow, perform up to 3 consecutive attacks, deal arrow damage, and it will also be considered as liberation damage, and it can also be cast in the midair. And for her dodge counter, when she's in the lunar cycle new moon state, she will do a successful dodge, counterattack with the moon bow, deal arrow damage, which will also be considered as liberation damage. And when she's also in the new moon state, when she does do a successful dodge, again, you can cast basic attack stage 3 again. So overall, her basic attacks for both when she's in the lunar cycle and non-lunar cycle state, looking pretty solid so far. Now for her resin skill, her first one, Impulsive Origin, she'll just dash forward, do arrow damage, nothing too crazy for this one. So for Closing Refrain, when she's not in the lunar cycle state, when you cast Moon Ring, basic attack stage 3, intro skill, or Pulse of Origins, her resin skill will be replaced with enhanced resin skill called Closing Refrain. And when you do use Closing Refrain in the non-lunar cycle state, she'll do a flurry of strikes, deal arrow damage, and she'll immediately enter the lunar cycle state. And when she's in the lunar cycle half moon state, her resin skill is replaced with Unfinished Refrain. And when you cast Unfinished Refrain, she'll cast a flurry of strikes, do arrow damage, and that's just about it. And also the cooldown will share the same timer as Closing Refrain. And when she's in the new moon state, her resin skill is replaced with Arc Beyond the Edge, which has 2 charges. And when you cast Arc Beyond the Edge, it causes Iuno to shift position and deal arrow damage, which will also be considered as liberation damage. And you can also control what position you want to go into when you do cast Arc Beyond the Edge. Overall, I do think her resin skill definitely looks a lot interesting. I do want to see how it plays out though with Arc Beyond the Edge with the 2 charges, because this part looks kind of cool right here. Now for her Forte circuit, the lunar cycle, this is what her entire kit revolves around. So Iuno can enter the lunar cycle state by casting resin skill Closing Refrain, or by using her Resin's Liberation. And the lunar cycle has 2 states, the half moon and the new moon state. By default, Iuno will always enter the half moon state when activating lunar cycle, and she can switch between the 2 states by casting heavy attack flux. And when she's in the lunar cycle, her jump will actually be replaced with heavy attack flux, and stamina won't recover when Iuno is in midair. And when she's in the lunar cycle state, her movement will also become meandering, I think that's how you pronounce it, which will consume stamina in a midair move in a unique manner, which I definitely do want to see how that's going to play out. And when you also perform environmental interactions like using utilities or holding jump, that will end the lunar cycle. Now, for the half moon state, she will attack using the moon ring, restoring sentience on hit. She will be able to use heavy attack flux, moon bow to deal arrow damage, which will also be considered as liberation damage, and she will switch to the new moon state. And also heavy attack flux can be cast in midair. And when she's using the moon bow, in the new moon state, when you cast moon bow basic attack, resin skill, Arc Beyond the Edge, or dodge counter, she will consume sentience to increase the skill's damage multiplier, restore concerto energy, and heal nearby resonators on the team, which is crazy in my opinion. And Iuno can use heavy attack flux moon ring to deal arrow damage, which will also be considered as liberation damage, and she can switch to the half moon state as well, and it can also be cast in midair. And when her concerto gauge is full, her heavy attack will be replaced with absolute fullness. And when you cast Absolute Fullness, it will end the lunar cycle, provide healing for nearby resonators in the team, deal arrow damage to nearby targets, which will also be considered as liberation damage, and which will conjure a full moon domain at her location. It can be triggered every 25 seconds. And when this domain is active, resonators inside this domain periodically restore HP and stamina. And when you gain a shield inside this domain, you'll be able to get a stack of Blessing of the Wan Light. It can be triggered every 0.5 seconds. And when you do have Blessing of the Wan Light activated, you get a 4% all damage amplification for 10 seconds, stacking up to 10 times, which is crazy. Like, that is straight up broken in my opinion. And when you have it fully stacked up, that's a 40% total damage bonus, like a 40% normal attack, Resonance skill, and Resonance liberation bonus, and 4-day circuit damage, which is, I don't even know what to say that. It has to be kind of speechless with how good it is. That is just amazing. And for sentience, she can construct 100 points of sentience. When you cast the intro skill, it restores 40 points of sentience. When you use her Resonance liberation, it restores 60 points. When you cast Closing Refrain or Unfinished Refrain, it restores 25 points. And when you are in the Lunar Cycle as well, if you use Moon Ring Basic Attack or Dodge Counter, in the meta attack, you restore sentience on hit. So when you enter the Lunar Cycle state, when you're in the Half Moon state, you're going to want to build up your sentience to max. And then when your sentience is at max concerto, you're going to want to swap to the New Moon state, use all your sentience to increase the skill's damage multiplier and heal nearby resonators. And when your sentience is also done, well, when your concerto energy is also at full, you're going to want to cast the Full Moon Domain and pretty much restore HP and stamina to your allies as well. So overall, I do think the whole domain thing that Iuno has and the whole sentience that she also has definitely looks very cool. So the only problem that I have with Iuno's kit is with the Full Moon Domain. And what that problem is, when you grant a shield inside the domain, you gain 1 stack of Blessing of the Wand Light. And the problem is, Iuno doesn't give shields to her allies. She only gives a shield to herself. And as of right now, the only character who will be able to trigger getting 1 stack of Blessing of the Wand Light is Augusta. That's it. So she works really well with Augusta. Augusta will be able to get the full benefits of Iuno's kit. She'll be able to gain the full support, and that's just about it. Every other character will gain everything else except Blessing of the Wand Light, which is kind of stupid in my opinion, considering Blessing of the Wand Light is just the most broken part of Iuno's kit in my opinion. So the only person who can really get the whole trigger of Iuno support is just Augusta. That's it, considering she's the only one in the game right now that can gain a shield inside the Full Moon Domain and gain max stacks of Blessing of the Wand Light. So I do like the design of our 4-day circuit besides the whole gaining a shield inside the domain, granting a stack. I'm surprised this part made out of beta in my opinion. I don't know why nobody said to test this, but whatever. And for her Resonance Liberation, she's going to deal arrow damage and into the Lunar Cycle state. That's just about it. Her intro skill, it's really nothing. She's going to come in, deal arrow damage, nothing too crazy. For her outro skill, she's going to attack the target dealing 100% arrow damage. The incoming resonator will have a 50% heavy damage amplification for 14 seconds, which is crazy. A 50% heavy attack damage amplification is wild in my opinion. So her outro skill, it's perfect for Gion. So I do think this might be Gion's new best in slot. I will have to think about that. So I could see her being Gion's best new in slot. She's definitely also going to work well with Augusta because the whole shield, and Augusta does also use heavy attack as well. She'll also be able to work with both Zani and Phoebe, considering they both also use heavy attack. So with her outro skill, I can see her being pretty flexible with outside of Augusta. She'll have Gion, Phoebe, and Zani, which is very good in my opinion. You have 3 very good DPS in the state of the game as of right now. And for her other skills, she'll have Waxing Accent. And every time Iuno casts basic attack, heavy attack, dodge counter, resonance skill, resonance liberation, or intro skill, she'll gain a shield to 32% of her attack for 15 seconds. And it can't be passed on to the incoming resonator, which is stupid in my opinion. And for her other skill, when she does cast her intro skill of resonance liberation, she will immediately gain 5 stacks of Blessing of the Wand Light. So her 2 inherent skills, they're really not that crazy in my opinion. I do wish that Waxing Ascent was better. I just wish that she gave shields to her allies. That's it. Like, that is my only problem with Iuno's kit as of right now. She doesn't give shields to allies. And since she doesn't give shields to other allies, most characters in the game, they're not going to be able to get the full effect of Blessing of the Wand Light. And when Blessing of the Wand Light is maxed out, that's a 40% overall damage increase. So I think the fact that every character in the game besides Augusta is going to miss out on this buff right here is pretty stupid in my opinion. So overall, Iuno's kit, I like it. I do think it's very good, but again, they should have just made it to where she should have been able to give shields to her allies. That's my only problem. If she was able to give shields to her allies, I think she might have been the best sub DPS in the game. And now for his sequence nodes. So our first sequence node is Wax Your Way in All Glitter Bow. And when Iuno's in the Lunar Cycle stage, she's getting a 40% attack increase. And when she's inside the Full Moon Domain, it will restore 1 point of resonance energy per second. And Arc Beyond the Edge and Heavy Attack Absolute Fullness become immune to interruption. Not looking too bad, it's more of a personal damage increase, so this one doesn't look too bad. Her S2, Resonators in the team with 10 stacks of Blessing of the Wand Light get an additional 40% damage amplification. And I do want to say that this is really good because when this is fully built up with her S2, Blessing of the Wand Light is going to be giving an 80% damage amplification, which is really good, but only Augusta is going to be able to access this with her S2. Only Iuno and Augusta will be able to gain this 80% damage application with her S2. Her S3, when Iuno is in the Lunar Cycle state, damaged up by Moonbow, Basic Attack, Resonance Skill, Arc Beyond the Edge, and Moonbow Dodge Counter is amplified by 65%. It's just another damage increase. Her S4, when you cast Heavy Attack Absolute Fullness, she will grant a shield to all Resonators on the team for 30 seconds. That's it. And the fact that this can only be triggered once is just crazy. So when you do have an S4 Iuno, other characters who can't gain shields, when they do gain this shield right here, they only be able to get like a 4% total damage increase, which is stupid again. I just want to know who tested this, because I think the fact that Iuno doesn't apply shields even on her S4 for allies, well, she does, but not that big of shields. I think the fact that she can't trigger multiple shields on her S4 is stupid, and I really want to know who was the beta tester for this, because whoever it was, they need to be fired, because they clearly did not test this character. And for S5, she's getting a 20% resistance liberation bonus, really not all that good. And for her S6, absolute fullness will be increased by 1600%, which is wild. And when she does enter the lunar cycle state in the new moon phase, she'll gain 100 points of sentience and reset the cooldown for Arc Beyond the Edge. So overall, her sequence notes are looking, they're pretty much just meant for personal damage. The only ones that really support are her S2 and her S4. So I personally wouldn't recommend going for her sequence notes unless you want to build Iuno as a main DPS, which doesn't look all that optimal. Her damage when at S6 does look crazy though, I will admit that, but it doesn't look the most optimal in my opinion, so I wouldn't recommend going for any of Iuno's sequence nodes. I think the only one that I could see a possibility that would be somewhat decent is for S2. If you just want to bring out Augustus full power, Blessing, and the Wand Light, that's just about it. But besides S2, the rest of her sequence nodes just suck in my opinion. And for her weapon, Moongazer Sigil, what it will do is it'll give her a 12% attack increase, and when you cast intro skill or Resonance Liberation, it will increase Resonance Liberation damage by 20% for 15 seconds, and obtaining a shield allows Resonance Liberation to ignore 7.2% of the target's defense for 7 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. So this one doesn't look bad. It's pretty much just Augusta's weapon, but as a gauntlet. So I personally don't really recommend going for this weapon. It's not bad, but I do think there's better options. Like for example, I do think the new Battle Pass weapon, Aether Strike, if you do consider buying the Battle Pass and if you want to go for Iuno, I would recommend going for this weapon because I do think this is her best free-to-play weapon right here, Aether Strike. And what this does is when you cast Resonance Liberation, you'll gain a 7.2 attack increase, and you'll be granted a 10.8 bonus Resonance Liberation damage for 15 seconds. So I do think her Battle Pass weapon definitely very good on her. So if you're planning on skipping her weapon, I would heavily recommend you go for her Battle Pass weapon. And if you do have Zhang Liao's weapon, this one actually works very good on her as well. Gain a 12% attribute damage bonus when using Resonance Liberation. The wielder gains a 48% Resonance Liberation damage for 8 seconds, and this effect can be extended by 5 seconds each time when the Resonance skills are cast, up to 3 times. So if you have Zhang Liao's weapon, I do think this is her second best 5-star option, and if you want a good 4-star option, I would say go for the Battle Pass weapon. These two weapons right here, definitely very good. So for her teams, I could see Iuno being pretty flexible in my opinion because of her Ultra skill, which does give a 50% heavy attack damage amplification, which is pretty good in my opinion. So who can she work with is the question. Well, she's obviously going to work well with Augusta. She was pretty much just made to synergize perfectly with Augusta, so if you pulled Augusta, definitely pull Iuno. If you have Zani, Phoebe, or Gion, especially Gion, if you have any of these 3 characters, I would also recommend pulling for Iuno, but she's still very limited with her support because since Zani, Phoebe, and Gion can't grant shields, they're not going to be able to get the whole effective Blessing in the Wand Light, which does suck, but you'll still be able to do a decent amount of damage and support them. But especially with Gion, if you want to make your Gion stronger, I would definitely recommend going for Iuno. And with that, that is a whole Iuno guide kit breakdown.
Remain the anchor.
Thank you for watching this video. If you did enjoy this video, make sure you like and subscribe. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.